freaking, what was the name of it? Oh, shoot. I'm sorry.
What happened?
I'm sorry.
No snapping. No snapping.
So we're going to talk about Endgame, if you haven't guessed already. So we're going to talk about Endgame. It came out a few weeks ago. I've had quite a few people ask me what my thoughts were about it. And ironically, we were just talking about, Alita being our most hated video.
Until this one.
Well, hold on to your butts.
I know. Like great Samuel L. Jackson line, by the way. From I was gonna say Jurassic Park, man. It is from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it's Jurassic Park. Yeah. So yeah, we got a mixed bag here. Yeah, that's all I'll say. We got a mixed bag here. We're gonna be as fair as we always are. We're going to go through the good, and we're going to go through the bad.
Now, and we also realize this movie has made a butt ton of money.
Oh, yes.
And is probably the most, I think it's beat Avatar at this point, maybe? It's pretty darn close. It's pretty, at this point, yeah. And I want to say it may have beaten it faster. I'm not sure how quick Avatar got to that point, but I don't know. But check it for yourself and come back and tell us.
It had to be a while because, inflation and everything like that, so it had to be a little bit.
Yeah.
So I probably did reach it quicker. I know people have seen this multiple times.
Yes. People were like, I got to go see it again. I saw it twice already. And I'm like, okay, sure. I mean, I can see it again. Yeah. Send the hate mail to him.
Yeah, send it all to me. Any angry comments, just direct them at me.
Mike.
I'm already prepared for it. I'm already mentally prepared for this and everything.
Yep.
I'm fully content for waiting for DVD or Blu-ray. Sorry, can't say DVD anymore. Or digital home release. I'll put it that way. Home release. That covers everything. The film opens up pretty much at the end of Endgame.
Yeah.
At the end of Infinity War.
Yes.
And, people wondering where Hawkeye was in Infinity War. Well, now you have the example.
Yeah, jumps right into it. Yep. There's no, setup explanation.
Yes. I will say it's a very dramatic opening.
Yeah. Starts right away.
Yeah.
A good bit of suspense.
Mm-hmm. And it's...
You're like, surprising. You're like, wow, what?
But also... I would say mature and slow. It took its time. Mm-hmm. There's people that are hurt by what happened.
So basically, I think the way it opened up was Infinity War. The snap hadn't yet happened, so it kind of overlaps some, and then stuff happens, and you're like, whoa,
yeah.
And you're like, oh, that really sucks.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
That really sucks.
Yeah. So you find out what happens to Hawkeye and everything. And I'll talk about Hawkeye a little bit later in the review. But the opening, I would say, that first 20 minutes, some people might think it's slow. If you thought it was slow, then put it down in the comments below if you thought it was slow. I think this was probably the most mature way that Marvel has ever handled something since probably... I'd say probably Winter Soldier and Civil War.
Yeah.
In terms of how they actually handled something in a mature way and actually grieving and stuff. So it was all right, I hadn't seen that in a long time. So because everything usually it's this happens. Oh, it's fine. We'll be okay. We persevere. It's all right. We move on with life. It's no, they're actually sitting down and having moments here or whatever. There's a moment, and we were talking about it earlier, that actually genuinely surprised me, and it was with the character of Nebula. Mm-hmm. I was genuinely surprised by Nebula because she now granted she grew on me in Guardians 2.
Yeah.
Because she has the whole emotional connection with her sister and the anger with her father and everything that's been done to her, and that really comes to a head in this film when you start to see her. You see her opening up to Tony Stark of all people.
Right. Yeah.
And, you see her opening up to him, and you see that she actually develops some form of a care for this guy. He's been, they've been hanging out in space for the past 21 days because they're stranded.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, they've actually developed somewhat of a friendship, relationship type.
Right. And he says something like she's a bit sadistic. I can't say it. Yeah. And I'm like, that's kind of funny, but they're kind of bonding. Yes. I mean, essentially, because there's not much else they can do because the ship is out of power, and I don't know how technically minded she is. She's kind of just a warrior, but she might know. I mean, she's no slouch either. I know she's done technical stuff,
right?
And certainly Tony is, very technically minded.
Exactly.
So you can imagine they've worked really hard to make sure the ship has done the best it can because they were able to get that far from the planet.
Right.
So.
So
they're playing like the little football.
Yeah, they're playing
the little paper football game.
That was funny.
It's kind of funny.
Okay, but at the same time, I was just like, it was one of those things like we don't have anything else to do.
Right.
Just understand like what do you do for 21 days alone in space?
You got to be creative.
Exactly.
You got to be creative.
You got Tony who's sending out. If you've seen the trailers, you know that Tony's recording his daily vlogs. If you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Whatever. But it's like everyone's dealing with stuff. I would say like in a more adult manner. It's not. None of this is really taken lightly. I would say that, and I really appreciated that. I really appreciated that, like I said, with Nebula, they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to show like her touching side or whatever to show that she had softened and become a more caring individual. Didn't have to do that.
But that's one of my pros. That's one of my pros too. Is there's great character interactions and character development.
Yes.
And now, the movie is long.
Yes. Very.
Parts of it felt long. Parts of it didn't. So it kind of like. It's almost like fast forwarding through it. It's like that stuff happened. When everything happened, you're like, wow. And you're like, wow, it took that long. But then there were slow moments that were the bad slow moments or that were in there. You're like, really? Come on. Right. I mean, that moment, like I said at the beginning, was slow. But I didn't think it felt slow because it was character building.
Exactly.
And you kind of like, because you have to build the suspense and build kind of the feeling of it.
Yes.
And so you have to kind of, like building the character and kind of like, and then coming to that kind of denouement and then like it resolve or something happened, change something.
The crescendo.
Yeah, so something changes and it's like, okay, now we're back and there's a beat change in there somewhere and then it's like, oh, and then all of a sudden you go to another side of the galaxy. We're talking, on Earth or whatever.
The one thing about the trailer I wish they had not put in there.
What's that?
It was the return of Scott Lang.
Right.
I was like, hey, shouldn't have put that in there. That's kind of like, all right, if you've seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, you know what happens at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp. So it's just kind of like, let it be a surprise that he comes back or whatever. In the film, I felt like that was
right. Yeah, don't show it in the trailer.
Yeah. But
they tried in the trailer. They tried to play it off as in like, is this old or is this current?
Yeah.
And so in the trailer, they kind of were doing the shell game a little bit like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you kind of knew. So it wasn't, they didn't do a great job with that.
Exactly. And I would say, like, as far as the character of Scott and how he was played, and even, like I said, because Scott was one of the funnier characters or whatever.
Yeah.
But even seeing him go through the emotion of just like, what the hell? Seeing him go through like, what happened?
Right.
I've been gone all this time. What happened? And then he goes and he's looking for his family, looking for his daughter and stuff like that. He's looking for these people, and he finds his daughter, and his daughter's grown up, and just seeing like the look on his face. And this was a really good acting moment from Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
To show that I am so happy that you are here and you're still alive. But I missed 5 years of your life.
Right.
Oh my God, I missed 5 years of your life. You're grown up. You're here in front of me as a teenager. You were a little girl last time I saw you.
Right.
I missed that. I wasn't there for you when all of this went down. All of that on his face.
Right.
That I would say, like, I don't know if Paul Rudd gets a lot of credit as an actor, but damn it, if he didn't do a good job there.
Right.
I'm trying to see if I got any more...
Positives.
Like positive stuff to go through. Obviously, the effects. I don't think this is all.
Yeah. We got no problem with the effects. CGI was great.
We know, like they're gonna put forth their best, and they're gonna have some moments that are shaky. Yeah. I don't think I have to mention that or anything. I think that kind of goes with it. If it's bad, trust me, we'll tell you it's bad.
Yeah.
I would say the effects, the acting was good. The character interactions were very good, especially in that first. I would say throughout the whole movie, but that first 20 minutes was really, like I said, that's what pulled me into the film a lot.
Right.
Now, as far as the characters that I felt like that hurt a little bit, that 5-year jump, I would definitely say the Hulk, because the reason I say the Hulk, it hurt me for the Hulk. It hurt the Hulk for me because we had this whole setup with the Hulk, he's not able to bring the Hulk out of him and stuff like that. You're like, oh, well, what's going to happen? How's he going to deal with this? How's he going to come to
magic?
Terms with
Wave
this?
the magic wand.
5 years later, oh, it's fine.
It's fine.
Let's handle it off screen. Yep. So it's kind of like, well, if you were looking for a good payoff to that, you're not going to get it.
Again, it's like I said earlier. It's like you felt like you're like half asleep on a Saturday afternoon watching a movie on your DVD, VCR back in the day, and you kind of started to nod off and you hit the fast forward. You're like, oh, what happened? So you're like, you just fast forward past like a big scene that you probably they could have handled without, and I think in some ways they could have handled it because they padded their runtime a little bit with a few things that I thought was just ridiculous, and we'll get to that. That's not really spoilers.
Yeah, and I would say also. I would say also Hawkeye was hurt for me. Because, now granted, I got Hawkeye, but it seems like in these films, Hawkeye always gets the short end of the stick. And he's always just kind of like, yeah, he's there because, he loses. It's not, if like I said, if you've seen the trailers or anything like that, you can kind of, he lost his family due to the snap and everything. And he goes down a really, really dark path.
Dark road. And I'm not sure, but I'm not sure why. And I don't think they ever explain why. Other than I'm sad.
Yes.
But why? Exactly. But why does that direct you to do that?
See that descent.
Yeah, we don't. Why did they make? I mean, he's sad because his family died.
Right.
Okay, a lot of people they're sad the family died. But why would he go on that and do that kind of stuff that he was doing? How did that make things better? Is he trying to protect the weak? I guess I don't know. They didn't really say. They didn't really.
It's not explained. It's just kind of like, he's here.
He's on a dark path now.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Okay, yes, I understand. Like the family dying, like losing his family, that's gonna be very hard on him. Especially like he was finally able to just kind of be happy, and everything. So I get that, but at the same time, it's just like when you do stuff like that and you make that jump. It's like you lost the build to that point. And this is why I'm saying like it probably would have benefited to have some movies post snap and to have a Hawkeye movie to see him go through that descent or whatever, and to kind of see him like just where he started out, and then like something starts to take over and like rage starts to take over and stuff like that. But allow us to feel that with him. I know this is a long movie, but at the same time, it's kind of like, all right, you went from here to here, and you're left to piece together what happened in between. And like you said, like other people are definitely sad. They lost their family. Some people just, but no one else is going out there being
vigilante man for some reason.
I called him Arrow, but basically.
Sure. Talking about the time jump in terms of how Ant-Man, how long he spent. Oh, yeah,
the time travel thing.
Because that doesn't work from the Ant-Man movies.
No, it doesn't.
So you've already established in these movies this happened, and now they're kind of undid it.
Yes.
It's like, oh, he was only there for a couple of hours, and it was 5 years. And you're like, but
that's not the way
it works. Then doesn't that mean that the Wasp's mother wouldn't have been that much older?
Exactly.
Because she would have only been there for like 40 hours?
Yeah, or something. If it's an hour per year or something like that. So it's, like I said, we're going into mild spoilers. Yeah, they do use time travel to go back in time or whatever. But the way they come about it was just, it was odd. It was very clunky and odd how it came about.
They weren't consistent. If you look at if you've seen any other movie reviews out there, they talk about how it wasn't really consistent because I've seen other people explain the several different kinds of time travel. So you have the cyclical one where like kind of the grandfather paradox, where you go back into your own timeline, and you can if you accidentally, like in Futurama, you accidentally kill your grandfather, then you will cease to exist unless somehow that wasn't your actual grandfather. And then of course, if you kill your grandfather, you can't be born to go back and kill your grandfather. So
exactly.
So there's kind of like that time
paradox.
Yeah, the time you get caught in kind of the loop thing. Yeah. The other one was the branch timelines, which is a big theory of, and it's not just time. Yeah, but not just time travel in general, but basically, like for example, like if I go and I'm going somewhere and I turn to the right. Well, that's where that line goes. But let's say I go to this road and I decide to turn to the left.
Yep.
Or I go to turn it right the next road.
Yep.
Well, guess what? Now that creates the kind of the branches.
You've got branches.
And so realistically speaking, people say, well, time is like that all over. So every decision is a separate timeline for everybody, which is crazy when you think about it. It's like a huge spider web of time out there.
Exactly.
That's where you get the wibbly wobbly timey wimey thing, because there's a lot of it out there.
Yes.
And so,
but I gotta point out the stupidity of like the Ant-Man coming back.
Enlighten us, Mr. Mike McBlam.
So, movie. Mm-hmm. Are you trying to tell me that a random rat, from out of nowhere, just gets into this van?
Yep.
And happens to press all the right buttons on the device to bring Ant-Man out of the microverse or whatever you want to call it, the quantum realm or whatever. Yes. I'm like, you're gonna sit there and tell me that a rat did that? Well,
and not even that. Not even that. Mm-hmm. I would almost let that go, because that van went from the top of a parking garage.
Yes.
5 years later, ends up in an impound lot somewhere, because apparently that's, they got to clean up the city or whatever. Okay, so, fine. Yeah. But why would not someone have come by after the snap and go, oh, there's all this free stuff lying around? Because not everybody's is a wholesome, good, pillar of the community. Yep. People go, oh, there's this old van sitting here. Oh, it has a lot of cool stuff. Yeah. Maybe I could steal some of it. I could take it apart.
Still in there.
Still working.
Still functional.
And here's the thing. Let's say that guy, the nefarious criminal mastermind, doesn't do that. Let's say he didn't find it because he's like, what's going on? And he's busy robbing banks or whatever. But let's say the police show up. They're not going to rummage through things. They're not going to, I don't know, why are these wires here? What is this? Hey, let's contact our tech people. Why? What is this weird thing? It looks bizarre. Is it
all happened to be in that one
spot? It could be a bomb. It could be it could be, hey, we need to contact S.H.I.E.L.D. Why? Well, because it's got some weird technology. Yeah. No, it goes to some random storage U-Haul lot.
And that all of it stays together?
All of it stays together, and it still has power.
Yeah. So
how does that work?
After 5 years.
After 5 years, that is the best battery pack ever. That's the best charge ever. Now, I got an iPad that holds the charge up pretty well, but no. 5 years, no.
You know what? Movie, that's your mulligan. How about that? I will give you that. That's your mulligan.
Yeah.
And then we went into the time travel thing, and they explained it to a certain degree. They said, okay, you can't go back and change the past. Your past. If you change the past, it doesn't change the future. So they're going about this fixed timeline thing, because that past will now become your future, and your present self becomes your past and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. If I go back in time, that past self, that past becomes my future, because I'm living through something again, or whatever. So I don't know what's going to happen. So it's kind of like, all right, if I go back, what's going to happen if I go back, or whatever. So it's all, even though I've lived through it, it's still all new to me. So that makes sense. What they did not account for was the other half of the equation. Was, okay, but what happens to the past self? What happens to my, if I interact with my past self, what does that mean? So if you're going about this fixed timeline, then somehow the timeline has to fix itself to a certain degree. So I'm like, okay, but how does it fix itself? So when stuff starts going on and stuff, people start going back in time and interacting with people. You start doing things that are suddenly different now. So we have Cap, Ant-Man, and Iron Man. They go back to 2012. Where they relive the events of the Avengers.
Right.
So they go back and they're going to try to steal the Tesseract. So they're able to steal the scepter.
Yep.
They're able to steal that pretty good, give or take a few hiccups, little hiccups there. So give or take a few hiccups. They're able to steal that, but they're not able to go to actually successfully steal the Tesseract. And Loki gets a hold of it.
Right.
And Loki escapes with it.
Yep.
So what happened? What happens? That things are different now.
Right.
But you said that going back and changing the past doesn't change. But how does that account for Loki escaping?
Right.
Who brings Loki back? Where does he go? Or like Screen Guy say, where does he go? Into a TV series. But where does he go? It's just kind of like, how does the timeline repair itself from that?
Right.
So like if you're talking about a fixed timeline. Now, if you're talking about multiverse, then it's fine. That's a completely different discussion. You say like, well, it would have introduced another ethical thing, because now if I go back and take this, well, I'm changing this timeline, I'm creating a new timeline,
right?
That may end up bad for the people that timeline.
In that timeline, right?
So now we have this ethical thing going on. Like, do we still do this?
Right. It's like Back to the Future 2. Is where they have this thing, and then Biff goes back and changes the past, but comes back to when he started and puts the car right back where he was, and then he actually the deleted scene or something. He actually disappears. That's why he's like because he's actually, if you look at the longer version of that, he actually ceases to exist there because he's changed it.
Right.
So when they go back to put Marty back in, because he went back to 1955 and gave him the Sports Almanac. Well, when Marty goes back to his timeline, that's a completely different timeline, because he went back to the changed timeline.
Right.
So, like, Doc Brown explains it pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
And so they have to go back and get the book back when, and let the other Biff think it happened. So he thinks he changed it, but then they changed it back again. So then it's back to the normal timeline when they go back again. And that made sense. I was like, okay, cool. But I think in this time, they actually did both. They did the cyclical timeline and the branch timeline.
Exactly.
Which, again... But here's the thing about the branch timeline. I'm pretty sure, and again, feel free to, I'm not an astrophysicist or anything, or I'm not a quantum physicist.
He's not caught up on the Flash yet, so just be,
yeah. I've seen some of them, but I think, but here's the thing: if you go back and take out, like you said, something, and then it creates a branch. If you go put it back, it's a branch that supposedly disappears, but I don't think it really does that, because there's still that moment of when it changed. Yes. So the only way you could sever that branch would be going back to the exact moment. But then that means there's two of you there, essentially.
Yes.
Because you have to give it, like, with Cap getting the scepter or whatever, the big pokey thing, which again I thought was the only reason why they kind of shoehorned that in, to have Cap fight himself, which I thought was kind of a bit forced. I think they were convenient with sending people back to certain timelines to get it that they didn't need to.
Right.
They didn't have to do it that way, although they did in one instance, which I thought was, again, bit on the nose.
Yeah.
With the two characters they had to send back to get one of them.
But that just makes it more contrived if you think about it, because it's like, oh, well, you just happen to send the people who happen to care about each other.
Right. Now, again, they didn't have to send those particular two people.
True.
And like I said, I think they kind of forced the Captain America fight with himself, which I thought was, I don't know, I had a problem with that. I just thought that could have been handled so much easier, but you had to have the fight between the two Captain Americas, I guess. I don't know.
It didn't really go anywhere, but all it did was, like I said, all it does is it introduces more questions, because I'm just like, all right, so this Captain America beats up the past Captain America, so this is past Captain America. Just wake up like, huh, that was weird. And
I know. And it's like, I had the weirdest dream.
Yeah.
I had the weirdest dream just now. I don't know. And like you said, when they knocked out Star-Lord, did he just wake up and go, whoa, what happened? And here's the thing: if they knocked him out and left him on that planet, wouldn't those little critters be eating him? You know what I'm saying? Because they jumped to get him, and he'd grab them, he'd kick them, and they're like, ah. And so, as he's singing to him, he's like, trying to eat his face, and he's like, I'm like, wouldn't they be nibbling on him when he wakes up, and he have all these sores, and his foot's running off in the mouth of a creature?
Yeah, it was like,
so. See, that's the thing they don't, I guess, figure out, and they're like, oh, you're being too nitpicky now. But yeah, they could have sent other people. They couldn't have sent certain people, because then they didn't really care that much about each other.
I mean, they had to do it for the sake of the plot.
Yeah, because, but that's the plot device convenience.
Yes,
I think.
That's the contrivance thing, because you think about it, it's like, what if they had sent, like you said, what if they had sent Thor and Rocket? It's like, all right, I guess we just. Do we talk to each other?
I know. They sit there drinking beers, and it's like, so Guardian, what'd you do for fun around here? Because I can see Rocket saying that. So, hey, Guardian, what do you do for kicks around here? It looks pretty boring. It's like, hey, I could really use that cape, or something. It's like so. They had to send Tony. Where they sent Tony, they had to send Captain America, so he had that thing, and I'm like, and then they had to send him there too because he had to run across Agent Carter.
Yeah.
I was like, I said something. So yeah, and it was all convenient because she happened to be there.
Yeah,
at that time,
very point in time, or whatever. It couldn't have just been like a picture or something.
Sure.
Or something like
and I got
to go into that very office.
yeah, of course, yeah. And here's the thing too: when they showed her, she looked the same age.
She looked, just like she did in the 40s.
Wouldn't she have been 70?
Something like that.
She would have been. I mean,
because she was around the 90s. They aged her for when they did Ant-Man. When they did Ant-Man, they aged her for that and everything. Right. So they didn't age her for this movie.
She looked right out of the 40s to me. Yes. And it was very brief. Again, I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, tell us. Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, okay, so in the first Captain America First Avengers, she was what, in her 20s maybe? I would say she had to have been a little bit. I would have said though she'd have to be a little bit older to be in that position as a woman. I would think. Yeah. So I would say, let's say she's 25, but that's in the 40s,
right? So
you add 30 years to that.
30 years to that, she's in her 50s.
She's in her late to mid 50s. Yeah. So again, she could pull it off in the 50s by looking like she did, I guess. I mean, if she's an agent and she's in shape, she's got to eat well and take care of herself. Yeah. I could buy that. I mean, she wasn't in her 70s, I guess. So there you go, because it was in the 1970s. So, yes. But. So
had to have the Tony at the moment that
Tony had with his dad, and so I'm like, okay,
it's nice, in terms of sentiment and emotional kind of payoff and resolution. It's just one of those things. Like if you think about it, you're just kind of like, but this doesn't really track. It's like it's like they took and were like, okay, we want this scene. Mm-hmm. We don't really care how we get it. We just want it.
Well, that's the thing. Like I said, with Cap fighting himself, I think they wanted some of that. They wanted, because they had to set up the Hawkeye scene with, Black Widow.
Before you get to that, I want to say just one thing, another character thing that I forgot about.
Sure.
Actually, two character things I forgot about. And you probably have this as well. Mm-hmm. But so we have Cap and Tony reconciling. They finally reconcile after, because they have to, to push the movie forward. And everything.
Well, when it first starts, though,
they are very much
still at odds.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's almost like they're further at odds.
Yes.
Than they were after Civil War. Even it's like, whoa.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of that was probably coming more from Tony than it was Cap.
Oh yeah. Because
Tony had a lot of resentment, and he'd gone through a lot and everything, and Cap for the bulk of the series, he's looked at Cap like a brother because his father always talked about him and stuff like that. So he's kind of looked at Cap as like this brother.
Well,
a brother, but he always kind of has that resentment.
Yeah, I was gonna say
he's the favorite.
Yep. There you go.
So
that's the thing is well, father always talked about you.
Yes.
Because and Tony would probably as a kid kept trying to measure up.
Yes.
In some ways.
Yes. So he kind of looked at him. He looks at him that way, and he wanted him there for that emotional support, but also there to just be there. Like you said you were going to be. You said we were going to do this together, and we didn't. We had this. They had this major falling out. Major falling out at the end of Civil War. And I understand that, that was one of the more adult things that happened in Civil War. It was they have this fallout. They're at odds with each other. So when they're in Infinity War, they're not together. And when they're in this movie, he still has a lot of that resentment. And as far as, we lost, and you weren't there. You said we lose together, you weren't there. And I was like, so yeah, I got that. Mm-hmm. But when they reconcile, and this is, maybe it's just me, it was too fast. It was just like, I don't want to be mad anymore. Yeah, me neither. Shake hands. Here's your shield back.
Right. Right.
I felt like, that should have been earned a little bit more over time, and maybe because, they have this mission that they go on together. Mm-hmm. Maybe after the mission that they go on together, they finally reconcile with one another. Like before, they get all the stones and they're about to go in and Adam's like, wait, I need to talk to you. So they have this conversation and then they kind of reconcile because they spent this time together and they realize that their differences, aren't that big anymore. Just like, hey man, this is in the past now. Let's.
Giant Man wasn't tired, but anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like, it just like there's inconsistencies within what they're doing. Just like, oh, he's Giant Man now. Like, oh, that's great. But he's Giant Man. He's fine. He's not winded. He doesn't pass out.
Yeah, he doesn't I got to sleep for 4 days or something. I don't know.
You had no time to really to perfect that or anything. So how is this actually going down?
That's a good question. Well, the two big cringy moments I had was the Hulk smash scene where they went back. They went back to the original Avengers where they're fighting. Loki bringing down the alien guys, big giant flying monsters and the guys on the sky scooters or whatnot. And it was Cap, it was Dr. Hulk, and it was Iron Man, right? Yeah, and
Ant-Man.
And Ant-Man, yeah. And so they were like, okay, and this, and Hulk, I guess smashed some things or something. He's like, okay, and he was like, and he hit a few things, and I'm just like.
It's one of those moments that I feel like, and that's in a lot of Marvel films. It's just like you stop to have a joke, but it didn't need to be there.
Nope, taking that right out.
I was like, this doesn't do anything. It's just
and then the big battle at the end with all the girl power. I laughed at that. I saw that happen, and I was like. That doesn't make any sense.
So all the girls from
all over the battlefield did a group selfie. I bet. Yes. I mean, not really, but that's what was on the screen. All the girl fighters at one time apparently were on the exact same side of the battlefield
at the
same time and did an epic pose. And apparently.
And we're ready to back up Captain Marvel, who, by the way, did not need backup.
No.
So, but there's a few things with Captain Marvel I want to get about too. But yeah.
So I'm just like, oh goodness, here we go again with the heavy-handed. Oh, we got to show all the girls together. Well, why? Number one, because we all know that there are awesome girls, and we love the character of Nebula because she's developed greatly. She went from being kind of a one-dimensional, I must kill things character to like you said, with Tony and her sister, and from Guardians 2, that was kind of one of the good parts about Guardians 2 was kind of the figuring things out there and kind of actually connecting with Gamora, and then connecting with Tony and kind of starting to see, like watching this man basically going to die because she probably wouldn't, because she's so cybernetic, she might live through this.
Right.
So that was kind of cool. And like, well, that's interesting. And then, we saw Captain Marvel. And the thing with Captain Marvel, why was she sad about Fury dying? Because you barely knew him.
Thank you. That's one of the points that I was going to get to.
She was like crying, and I'm like, she barely knew the guy.
She had no emotional stakes in the movie. And that's what was really irritating me about it. Was like, you could have done a lot better with that character.
Right.
Now, granted, here's the one thing I will say. She actually has a personality in this film.
Yeah.
It's not a likable one, but at the same time, like, it's still a personality. That's
it is.
Much more than we got.
It is.
That's much more we got before.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, she has a personality. She's brash. She's cocky and stuff like that.
And she is sporting a new hairstyle.
Yes, she is. So in some way, I was kind of happy to see that. I was kind of like, okay, all right, well, at least she's something now.
Right, yeah.
Better than she was before.
Right.
But, she has this attitude about her now. And I understand, like, if some people don't like that. But at the same time, I'm saying, like, at least it's something not to like.
Right.
Yeah. But there are things you could have done with this character and this is the thing that irritated me, was, like, she was an ex machina.
Yeah.
You used her as an ex machina because she's the one that saves Tony. Who else is going to do it? She's the
one.
But
how did they find?
How did they find Tony? I'm like, was she just chilling out in the middle of the space or whatever? Just bunker head. Like, the heck is this?
I know. It's like,
it's like
because that happened in a hot minute. Is what that did. See, that's a thing you could have like. Oh, we got a signal from somewhere. That would have made more sense. But no, it's just a hot minute. Just in a hot minute, they go, oh, there she is. Yeah. Oh, there's the ship.
Yeah, it just.
They didn't know the ship was there. They didn't know. They had no idea where Tony was.
Exactly.
They had no idea where he was.
They didn't know where he was.
Yeah, they didn't know what planet they were on. They had no idea.
Yeah. And then, so like she's an ex machina there when the final battle starts and everything. Right. She's an ex machina there because it's like, how did she know that they were in trouble? Why did she come to planet Earth to help out? And it's kind of like,
right.
But how did she know this stuff?
Right.
And now, like I said, a quick thing, some quick things you could do there for her character. I would have, if you were going to show any type of emotional attachment, maybe show her friends that were in the Captain Marvel movie or whatever. It's like somebody she's emotionally attached to or something like that. Maybe maybe even a Kree or something.
I was gonna say, well, here's what you do: show that guy, the guy she helped, show his family disappearing, and then maybe that makes him kind of jaded or something, and then it makes her sad because, well, first of all, it's a kid.
Right.
And I don't care if it's an alien kid. I mean, kids are kids, right? So you're like, oh my God, little kid, what happened? And so you're like, what's going on? I don't know. And so then, now the other way you can kind of figure out how they found Tony's ship, maybe, is she tracks Thanos' ship to that planet and then goes, there's another energy signature here. It's a different energy signature. That came from a different direction. Let me try, and then I was like, oh wait, and let me try to find it. Well, this one, again, she has technology. She could have done that,
right?
And she goes, well, this one's is stronger, so it must be fresher. So I'll follow that one because that would probably be the direction they went. Then you can find it, and you can really quickly explain that.
Yes.
Instead of just going, oh, here's the ship. Oh, we're on Earth now.
Here she is.
Here's the ship. We're on Earth.
Same thing with the final battle. It's like, okay, she's like over here helping these people out, and she's like being like I would say like the Supergirl of the
right.
Of the series.
They've established that they've established in the movie because Black Widow is there saying, hey, I'm monitoring stuff from Earth, and she got a call from various people from across the universe or whatever, and so she was one of them. And she's like, well, I'm over here helping out because, this side of the galaxy isn't, universe isn't responding as well or whatever. So there's going to be problems, Exactly. There's going to be a power dynamic going on because it's going to be a power vacuum. And so people are going to go, well, I'm going to exploit that.
Right.
Because that's what you do. I mean, there's nature pours a vacuum, as we know. So you take an animal out over here, a bunch of more animals are going to move in and take advantage of that kind of space because they go, cool, there's no critters that will eat me. I'm going to go over here and go crazy, as we see now. So let's see. Yeah, so I didn't understand why she was all sad about Fury that she barely knew for like a couple of days.
Yeah, and like I said, like with the final battle, like we were saying, like they established like there was communication. She could have been on a planet helping somebody out. She's all smiling and everything, and then she's like, she tries to get a hold of Black Widow.
Yeah, she tries to call. It's like, I'll call in for my weekly, chat or something.
Like,
tell her what's going on.
I can't get a hold of her.
There's nothing going on.
And then maybe have one of those like little monsters or whatever, like the place is in ruins. So you can see that, and then one of the monsters like jumps out at her because like it's her in hologram form.
Yeah.
So she's like, I have to go.
Right.
Boom. And then takes off or whatever.
Yeah.
So now you're invested more in her. And you're like, is she going to get there in time or whatever? And then when the cannons start to move up, then it's like, you have that moment of just like, yeah, she made it and everything. But here it's just like the cannons just start moving up and you're like, the hell's going on? And it's like, oh, it's Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Where the hell did you come from?
Yeah. Oh, there she is. Oh, and she destroyed the ship. Sure. Okay. Take a step back real quick. Talking about when they go back to get the stones, the Infinity Stones, with Star-Lord. They go back to get that one.
Power Stone.
Yeah. And so, like with the Captain America fight scene thing, so you have, and now it's not Star-Lord because remember he disappeared, but he's there because he's going to get the Infinity Stone. So he's on that planet and they're trying to stop him getting it. Like I said, why wouldn't they eat him? But the funny part was, and some of them are kind of cringy moments, but this one I thought was kind of funny, is remember when you're watching Guardians, the first one, he's dancing and singing, like, or, not really singing, but he's, mouthing the words and singing maybe a little bit. I thought it was funny that we saw it from outside of him.
Yes, so you can hear
because
him actually singing.
You actually kind of sort of say, and they're like, what's really this guy? Oh. And so and then they brain him and they get the the stone, whatever. Or they already had the stone, I guess, but they brained him to stop him from getting it. I don't know. But anyway, and then like again, I don't the other part like the nibbling of the creatures. But anyway, so I got that. And I thought it was funny because it would be weird. It's like, if you're sitting there, if you're in a car singing a song, you're enjoying yourself. Well, how does it look from another car? And that is the funny bit.
Yes.
And that's a good comedy. I think that works because you're like, that would look weird if you're kind of like at the fly on the wall. And it did. And it was funny. Okay, so now I mentioned Iron Man 3, where, Tony Stark's character had, crippling, anxiety from myriad of things, mostly the
attack on
New York City. And he kept having that. And it kind of built and built, which was great because I showed him, even though he was self-confident and was, could do all these things, it still brought him down and still made it so bad he almost couldn't function.
Yes.
But they didn't play it for laughs. They didn't play it for comedy. They didn't really, from what I remember.
They did quite a few times. But it was, like I said, there was moments where like they really shut up and just kind of like, all right, he's really dealing with this.
That's what I mean. They didn't just play it off as a silly thing. I mean, the kid was like, "What are you doing? What's wrong?" He's having a thing, and so here's the thing. He played it off for a laugh. Like, don't worry, I'm fine. So I think he played it off more for a laugh than the situation or someone making fun of him. I think, again, unless I'm wrong, because again, I haven't seen that movie in a while, but from what I remember, I recall him trying to play it off because that's what he would typically try to do, to say, I'm fine, even though he's not really fine. And the kid's like, you don't look fine, But yet, in the movie here with Thor was going through a very similar issue of, I failed everybody, I didn't do it, I could have, I'm stronger than that, I can't believe I'm such a failure. So he gets, fat, and he has all these self-doubts.
Right.
So they played it off kind of as a fat joke thing. And I'm like, instead of us feeling bad for him and identifying him as a guy who failed, and like Tony Stark feels like a failure, and who comes back as redemption, they kind of played it off as a buffoonish laugh.
Yes.
And people say, but he still fought at the end of the battle. I go, eventually he did. But as they kind of did that, it's still, he was like, I can't do this. Oh. And then, so Rocket was like, okay, we can do this. And then he runs away and hides and goes talk to his mommy. And I'm like, and even after that, they still played it off as a joke of him being fat and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, so Disney, what are you doing here? Are you saying that, it's okay to laugh at fat people now? Is it okay to make fun of people who are going through horrible, doubt, self-doubt, stress, PTSD, anxiety, fill in the blank of whatever kind of, the self-diagnosis thing you want to do here. And the fact that he feels inadequate because he wasn't able to stop, this from happening at his best. And he feels like a failure that he didn't lead his people because people died. So there's a lot going on with him. But to kind of play it as a joke, I just feel wasn't the right way to handle it. And I think that's probably the biggest problem I have. Is I think they really did Thor's character the worst, I think. But
you are not alone in that.
Okay.
With Thor, here's the thing. When Thor first showed up and he was fat, I was like, okay, that's funny, but for a moment, is when they mention Thanos' name, and all of a sudden things get quiet. For a moment, I'm like, yes, okay, you can see something is very, very wrong. And even like Hulk's like, hey man, you all right, dude? It's like, it's actually, that was probably the most mature they handled it, because everything after that, I mean, you got people making fun of him and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is actually really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, and I might be putting myself out there too much, but as a person who's gone through depression, and not cool.
Right.
Not cool. You know, and that actually pissed me off quite a bit.
Right.
Eventually, like seeing him in the battle at the end and him coming to terms with it and stuff like that, I was like, okay, all right.
Right.
But even then, you had to add the it's like, it's okay, honey. Maybe have a salad. I'm like, really?
Right.
Really?
But that's the thing. It's like, okay. Now, again, I've heard other reviewers talking about this and say, well, but hey, even though he feels inadequate, even though he feels fat and blah, 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 although he did get a chance to braid his hair before the battle.
Braid his beard.
Because sure, why not? They go, but he did step forward finally and jump. He didn't let that stop him. I go, okay, yeah, cool. No problem. But I just know if they had done this to, say, a female character, I don't think it would have gone over the same way, because I think people would have said, you're making fun of her because of her...
Because she's weak.
She's weak and blah, blah. But he's weak.
Yeah.
He's vulnerable.
Yes.
I mean, you saw that.
Yes.
and because I thought the way his character was developing was like he was finally kind of coming into his own because of finally became the leader of his people after Ragnarok, which we knew was like it's kind of something going on there, but and the fact that he kind of Loki died.
Yeah.
We saw Loki die. We didn't see him come back.
Right.
Because again, it wasn't Snap. It was he killed him.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I was wondering if it was some kind of like a copy or illusion, but it wasn't. From what we could see, we'd never seen him again. Mm-hmm. So we're like, even though he and Loki had issues, he still really had feelings for his brother. He was hoping his brother would redeem himself at some point.
Yeah.
And he already got the weight of trying to protect his people after Hela, caused Ragnarok and destroy Valhalla and all that.
Thanos comes in.
And then Thanos comes in and kills his people. And so you're like, okay, he's already got enough going on. Why are you going to make him a buffoon? And why wouldn't you, I don't know, why wouldn't you make him more determined instead of less determined? And say like, oh, I'm a failure. I can't do anything. And I'm just going to sit around and be fat and eat potato chips and drink beer and play video games. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I guess so. But I just think they kind of made everybody like that, but they made him worse.
That's the thing I would say. That's the thing.
Why not make him gung ho of like we gotta find him, and like have him train more because next time I meet him, I'm gonna beat his ass. Why not do that?
And that would make his line at the end where he says, "Let's kill him properly this time."
There you go.
That makes that more impactful.
That's right. There you go.
And everything, because that was the thing. That's that when I was letting you talk and everything, but that was that very thing that I was going to say was like, everyone else gets to deal with their emotions in a mature manner. Why doesn't he?
Right. Exactly. So some of the spoilers, and we kind of mentioned like, we talked about it briefly, but we kind of glossed it real quick, so we come back to it. Mm-hmm. So how come they like almost completely beat Thanos with the gauntlet, but this time was so hard to beat him? I don't know. I don't
understand that part of it.
I don't either. Like
pre-Thanos, pre-Gauntlet Thanos, pre-Infinity Stones Thanos was stronger than Thanos with Infinity Stones.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm not saying like all the Infinity Stones. I'm just saying like he had like 4 at one point, and they were able to kind of go toe to toe with
them. They almost got the gauntlet off of him in the Infinity War. Exactly. Really close, except for Star-Lord. But they almost won. They almost got him with, in my opinion, weaker characters who were fighting against him. And here they had more powerful characters fighting against him, and yet they still weren't.
And they were not enough.
Good. Although I will say, at the big battle, CGI battle at the end, Scarlet Witch had him nervous as she was ripping him apart. Basically, and he's like, "Call in the rain." And they're like, "Whatever, own troops."
I don't know. Nope. I don't know if you know that is my favorite. I know Catching a Hammer is great and everything. That was set up and thing, but like when Scarlet Witch comes out. Yeah, and I see her standing there, and I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, we're like,
I want it in Infinity War because I was really expecting her to because at the end of Age of Ultron, when her brother dies, she loses her shit and obliterates every robot in her vicinity, and I'm like, she can do that, and like, why are you nerfing her so much in Infinity War, man?
Right.
She can take these guys out, no problem.
Right.
And then, so seeing her almost rip Thanos limb from limb was kind of like, okay. And she deserved that. She did that.
Right, yeah.
Now, I can't call out the fact that why didn't she fight him again after that?
She had to run over for the girl shot
that's right,
selfie. So she had to kind of like, oh, hang on. I got to go take care of this. Good picture. Hawkeye and Black Widow go to get the Soul Stone. Talk to the Guardian, a.k.a. Red Skull.
Right.
And said, we got to figure out how to get it. Now, again, they sent those two there.
Of course, yeah.
Because, they had to.
Right.
Because if not, they wouldn't have been able to get a Soul Stone, although they didn't know that at the time that somebody had to die. So they fight, blah, blah, blah. Now, again, I'm not sure why Black Widow died, because she has a movie coming out. That seems really weird, but okay. So I personally would have thought rather that Hawkeye dying would have been better, because that would have, I know his family would have been like, oh no, he's dead. but maybe that would have redeemed him because he has to kind of live with a lot of bad stuff he did that he didn't want to live with.
Right.
And that's kind of, I don't know about that. But anyway, so now they got to de-age her, make her younger, which again is a thing, but whatever. But so at the end, they send Captain America back. Don't know why I had to send Captain America back. Plot convenience.
Yeah.
Because that way he can have his happy ending, obviously, because
exactly.
it was obvious. It was obvious.
Yeah.
They could have sent Ant-Man. Oh, yes. No, they could have done that because he knows more about it than they do. But okay, whatever. And he can turn into an ant, so he cannot be seen by other people. Exactly. But no. Don't think too hard about it. Just munch your popcorn and smile. So Cap goes back. He's supposed to come back. Doesn't come back. And then you see an old man sitting by the lake, and they go, "Who's that?" Okay, so now the time travel thing, which was supposed to be branches, which then didn't become a branch because that's him.
Yep.
That became a circle. So that kind of totally blew the description of when they talked when Banner talks to the Ancient One about, oh no, we'll place it back and the branches will wither away.
Right.
That didn't work there because he came back on his own timeline.
Right. So you basically just said that now you just told us that this is a cyclical timeline now.
Yes.
So
even though that's what they said earlier.
So yeah. So and also now Thanos from 2014 came to the future.
Yep.
And he was defeated.
Yep.
So how did
there was no Infinity War.
Yes. That didn't happen.
You can't do it. You can't. Here's the thing. You can't have it both. People go, well, but you can't have it both ways. You can't have Cap coming back on his own timeline. And that would also mean there are two Caps running around on Earth, which again wasn't a problem because he fought himself. Okay, fine. Yeah. There's no paradox there where they disappear like in Time Cop. Like in the old movie Time Cop where they, remember, two same things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. In the movie Time Cop, they touch each other, they turn into a pile of goo. They kind of and they kind of just disappeared. But you can't have a branch thing like they explained earlier in the movie, and then all of a sudden have a cyclical thing again. Because if that's the case, that Captain America is actually the original timeline's Captain America, and the other Cap maybe found him in the ice and said, "Hey, go spend time with Agent Carter." But in that case, then the other Cap could have came back. I don't know. But anyway, maybe we're thinking too hard about it. But you can't explain it two different ways and go, well, this is the way you do it, and this is the way you do it.
Yes.
Because like you said, then that creates a problem. But now, here's the other thing. If the Soul Stone was a soul for a soul, and Cap goes back and puts the Soul Stone back, Black Widow should be alive. So she would not have died.
Somebody should come back.
Right. Yeah, Gamora would have came back. That would have been two Gamoras or whatever. Yeah. But that was, they got it before that one, so I could see it being her. But that's the thing. So he said, the Guardian said, it's a soul for a soul. That's his rules. They've established that. So
if he goes back and gives that stone back.
Yeah, if the stone goes back, then she should come back alive because she sacrificed herself for the stone. Therefore, the stone will be sacrificed for her life. That is the way it should be.
Right.
But again, they kind of did the double flip on that like they did with the time travel thing. It's like, oh, no, it doesn't work that way now.
Yeah.
Because, again, I think it would have been cooler. But, again, this is my opinion. Again, these are our opinions because our lips are flapping and sounds are coming out of them. That's how you know it's our opinion. I think it would have been in some ways better because they lost Black Widow. They're broken up about it. But then they didn't think about it. And then all of a sudden when they come back and they go, what? Oh, my God. And they're like, it's Natasha. And I'm like, oh. Yeah. She's like, hey, boys, how's it going?
Yeah.
You miss me or something? And because then Banner would have been like, oh, my God, that's so great because he really, Yeah. And then Hawkeye would have been like, I can't believe you, and then so that would have been that thing. And they go, well, where's Cap? And then cut to him at the thing and say like, well, I didn't feel right about leaving her behind. Because he wouldn't have. Because he's Cap, and he wouldn't have done that. So I think that was a bit of thing. And people say, well, but how could she have come back, and how could he have done it, whatever. Because again, if he would have, let's say she came back. Well, Cap would have had to given her a suit to get back because he was wearing the suit to the PIM particles and whatever.
Yeah, the suit and the
little thing. So that would have been the easy fix. As he's packing to go, you see him pack an extra suit and doesn't tell anybody.
Yep.
Because they had extra suits. Because everybody had a suit.
Everybody had one. She had one.
She had one.
Yep.
There you go. pack the suit. Don't tell anybody. You see him closing. Hey, Cap, you ready? Oh, yeah, I'm ready. And then close it real quick. Mm-hmm. There you go. You're playing that way. So then you still got him and he's got his suit somewhere.
Because they all know how this works now.
They all know how it works. Yeah, they all know how it works
now. So.
And so he could have given her the suit and said, and they're sitting there standing on the planet, like you said, have an awkward conversation with the Red Skull.
Yeah.
and say, well, why aren't you coming back with me? He goes, and he would say, I have somewhere else I have to be. And have her look at him and go, and give him a hug and give him a kiss. He's like, I know. Mm-hmm. And then he disappears, and she goes back, and then because then you could like flash back real quick to that moment, and then you flash to him over there, and like, is that him? Mm-hmm. And I kind of teared up a little bit for that because I thought that would have been actually really good. Because I mean, it still would have ended the same way.
Yes.
And it would have made more sense that now Scarlet Witch has. I mean, keep calling her Scarlet Witch. I want to call her Scarlet Spider.
Yeah.
I want to call her Scarlet Spider. But Black Widow would have come back because she's going to do a movie anyway, which makes more sense now. And again, you could have de-aged her, I guess, but then I think it would have made more sense to de-age her a little bit and then have her come back to present day. That makes more sense because that's where she's at her age now. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and that would have still worked out.
Right. Exactly.
And I don't know. Would have made. I don't know. I just think it would have wrapped it up a little better. I think. I don't know. Because again, you can't. If you establish the rules for that movie thing, kind of like Star Wars, you guys know.
Yeah.
You can't establish something and change it and go, it's normal now. Oh, no, you've already established the past 30 years or plus, 40 years or plus, whatever. You can't undo that and go, well, now it's different.
Yes.
Why? Why is it different?
Yes.
And if you want it to be different, create a different movie.
There you go.
And then create all your rules for that different movie and go, hey, this is a different thing. Cool, no problem. But you still got to stay within the confines of what you just created.
Exactly.
Because that's what you created.
You can't just make that. You can't just you establish your rule and then immediately go back on it.
Nope. Well, unless you're Ryan Johnson, you can do that.
Yeah. I don't know, but like it did. No, granted, it's nowhere near as badly written as that film. But like some of the plot holes and stuff that they created. It was plentiful.
Yeah, and that's why you didn't like it as much as I did. Although I did love the part at the end of the battle where Cap got Mjolnir.
Oh yeah,
the hammer. I think everybody loved that part. Yeah. But we kind of knew that from Age of Ultron, where he nudged it slightly, and Thor was like, "Ooh."
And I've always had an opinion.
I was like, "Cool." I was like, "All right, cool." Because I do have to say, of all those characters, I honestly think he was more virtuous than Thor. Even I do. I really think so.
So too. But here's the thing. Yeah, I got a good picture of that.
Yeah, it's really good. That's a really good picture.
But
it's like, dang, that boy's cut.
Oh yeah.
It's like, holy smokes. See, I'm totally cool with my masculinity to say, man, he is ripped.
Yes.
And I saw something about how he's like, man, I worked out all the time. I ate so much. Yes. He goes, I hated it because I had to force myself to eat all this food.
But both him and Ben Affleck, they hated it.
Yeah. And so it's not,
But I've always had the theory in my head that he could have lifted Mjolnir right then and there, and when he went to go lift it, he acted like he was like couldn't lift it, and then when it moved, he was like, "Oops!" He's like, oh, and just kind of like, "Can't do it." Sorry.
Or maybe he goes to lift it. Mm-hmm. And he feels it lifting in his hand, and then he's like, "What? I'm not worthy." Boom! It falls down. Mm-hmm. So you see him if again they'd have to do it real quick because again it happened like in a split second. Right. Like as he lifts it, you see his face change, and and like it'd have to go real fast. You'd have to go, what? And then all of a sudden, huh? And no, oh, so you have to do it real super fast.
Yeah.
They could have pulled it off, I guess. I thought you were worthy, and I was right. Mm-hmm. Is what the hammer basically said, and then all of a sudden,
yep.
And it was like, okay, so now we got two powerful weapons who's going to kick your ass.
Yes.
And he got, it did pretty good. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, again, Thanos is Thanos. He's powerful.
Yeah.
Even by himself, he's super powerful. So
yeah.
All right.
But I couldn't, just watching it, I'm like, I can't bring myself to understand like how this Thanos is so much stronger.
So much more powerful, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just
but no Infinity Stones.
Yeah, I mean, even I'll even go ahead and say it. Even against Captain Marvel, like I was like,
yeah.
Well, technically, yes, he did have the gauntlet on by then. So I'm like, okay, I'll give it that.
But she was able to.
She absorbed the power
of the gauntlet, and so I'm like, ooh, that's really overpowered.
Yeah, And like to the point where he just like plunk headbutt her and she didn't even move.
Right.
I was like a Dragon Ball Z moment there. I was like,
but here's the other thing. But, in that moment, why wouldn't she just put the gauntlet on and like just bash him into the earth and then go over there and go, or kill him with it and then go over there and go, okay, let's put it back.
Well, here's the thing. Like in that particular scene, I'm like, okay, headbutt. He's like, oh snap. And then she rises up and has her fist back and doesn't punch.
Yeah.
And it's like a good few seconds because like he realized like I'm about to get my ass kicked here. Oh snap. Grab the Power Stone real quick.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, punch him.
I know.
Something. And you know what? I gotta say the same thing about Tony's death. Since we're going into major spoilers here,
sure.
I gotta say the same thing about Tony's death. It's just like, and I will give full credit to Ryan from Screen Rant for saying this. It's just like, all right, he gets this huge boost of power when he gets all the Infinity Stones on him and everything. But when Tony grabs the gauntlet and steals the stones off of it,
there's no noticeable difference. He's like, I got this.
Wait, what?
What happened?
I was like, how did you not know that you didn't have them anymore? And then Tony gets in and he does the snap and everything like that. And it's sad. I won't sit here and say that it's not sad.
Right.
It was a little bit awkward, the blocking of the scene where everyone's coming to kind of console with him and everything.
Yeah, it was kind of the girl power scene. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
You had to have everybody in the shot and everybody had the little moment, I guess, of.
Well, the weird thing about it was if they had done like an over-the-shoulder shot or something like that for like them, because you had Tony. I'm sorry, you had Rhodey, you had Pepper, and you had Peter. They were all right there. Those are like okay, that's his circle, that's closest to him and everything. I get that they're going to be in mourn for him and be like they don't want him to die. I definitely understand that, but it was kind of like Rhodey was here. And then Spider-Man had to come in, and then Rhodey had to step out of the way, and then Spider-Man had to be there, and then Spider-Man had to step out of the way, and then it was a little awkward with the blocking. So it was like they were tapping each other out. He's like like Rhodey's there like, oh, I'm sorry, man, and then Spider-Man comes in, taps him out, and they keep tapping it. So it was a little awkward.
Right.
That kind of took me out of the emotion of the scene a little bit, and I was just kind of like, this is a little awkward. It was still sad. It didn't actually I kind of got a little choked up when she said like, oh, what cheeseburgers? And then running my Iron Man 1. I was like, okay, that got me a little bit. But yeah, that scene there was just awkward. And like the thing about it with Tony's death, and I'll talk about this in another video as well, but with Tony's death, it didn't have to happen. That was the thing that kind of got me, was just kind of like, all right, well, because Hakeem asked me a question. He was like, hey, topic for your next CJC video. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, so whose death hit harder, Logan or Tony? And I said, well, Logan, because Logan's death, he couldn't do anything. Logan was up against a more powerful force that he knew he couldn't beat. He was no way he could beat him. Even if, X-24, his younger self, had not gotten shot in the head and died, he still would have lost to him. He still would have died against him. So it wasn't like he had anyone there to really help him and make a big difference. Like, he was up against insurmountable odds. Tony there was a team with Tony. There were people with Tony. Like, somebody could have helped him or something, or just the Guardians of the Galaxy, they hold the Power Stone together. It was like, hey, everybody hold hands, let's snap together or something,
True.
So there's things that could, it was like, it didn't have to happen. I understand that you wanted it to happen and you wanted the emotion there for it to pay off. I understand a lot of people were very broken up about that and stuff. Jojo was one of them. He texted me. He's like, I'm not crying, you're crying. I'm like, I guess
yeah. But, it's just raining on my face.
So I understand it, but it was just like, execution-wise, it wasn't as impactful as it should have been in that regard. So, I mean, like I said, the writing was after a while, the writing just got to be a mess, man. It just kind of like, the scripts just started to fold in on itself. And there was really no coming back to it coming back for the movie, for me, and to where I was like, all right, I can't really say this is, I would probably say, and like this is an initial reaction, and having only seen it the one time, and not having delved into it like one of my CJC reviews or whatever, or something like that, I would say that this is okay. It's an okay film. Do I like it?
Right.
Not really.
You don't like this movie?
There's certain parts of it that I really do like.
Right. I mean, you definitely like Infinity War as a whole.
Oh, yes.
You definitely like that.
Yes. But this one, and Infinity War's got some issues too, but not as much as this.
Right.
So this one was more kind of like, it felt, and I talked to Hakeem about this after we had gone to see it. That's like, it just felt like they didn't know what they wanted to do after the snap. They were just like, oh, we did this really awesome thing. What do we do now?
Yeah. But it's kind of like the 5-year thing, too. It's like, I'm not sure what to do. Let's give us 5 years and we'll think about it. Okay, now I know what to do.